Good evening. Welcome to On the Road, episode 6. I'm here in Grimsby. I was in Hull this morning. So, North Lincolnshire, East Yorkshire. I mean, these are the Leave heartlands. We've got constituencies here where 70% Leave is quite low because the neighbours have got 73. And many of these seats represented by Labour MPs who are now standing on the basis of a second referendum with a choice of Remain against a form of Remain. I mean, it's almost unbelievable. Real anger in these areas. Anger, they've been ignored. Anger at what's happened to many of these towns and cities over the course of the last few years. And remarkable this afternoon being in Grimsby. This used to be the biggest fishing port in the world. Even 30 years ago, there were 300 fishing boats in the harbour here. There are now 8 catching whitefish, some crabbing, some catching whelks, other things, but 8 going out catching fish. Why? Because under the Common Fisheries Policy, we don't have our territorial waters, and even the bit we do have, we're given quotas from Brussels, which mean it isn't even economical to run boats. There is no shortage of fish in the North Sea. Don't kid yourself about that. And yet today I saw processing factories, I saw some very good successful businesses. I mean, they're filleting haddock for fish and chip shops and all the rest of it. And yet 100% of the fish that is processed here in Grimsby is coming in from Iceland, Norway and the Faroe Islands. So anybody asks you, what are the benefits of leaving the European Union? Come to these North Sea ports, see what's happening on the other side of the North Sea in Norway and realise actually getting back what is rightfully ours, our territorial waters, would be a huge boost for parts of the country such as this. And I was very pleased in Hull to welcome a new candidate, Michelle Dewberry. I was hoping for her to join me tonight. She's not going to be here on time, sadly. And Michelle, of course, famous for her turn on The Apprentice. She appears regularly on The Pledge, a regular question time, contestant. And Michelle is great. She's great for us, great for this campaign, very, very principled. And there's no doubt, once again, same old message here, that Corbyn is not connecting with these parts of the country, that Labour is doing worse in this general election than any opinion poll or any BBC News item would ever have you believe. Now, that's what I've been doing on the face of it today. But let me tell you a story about today. Today has been yet another very shocking day for me. In fact, I'm going to entitle this episode Venezuela. We're told that Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell were great fans of the Venezuelan economic model, which of course went completely to ruins. And so it's often been joked and said that if Jeremy Corbyn came to power with McDonnell as Chancellor, we'd become like Venezuela. But we don't need the Labour Party to become like Venezuela or any other failed state in South America or perhaps even parts of Africa, because what I've seen today goes completely against any principle of free and fair and corrupt-free democracy. It is, in a free society, our right as individuals to stand for public office, to put ourselves forward to the electorate. We can do it in the name of a political party. We can do it as independents. It's our right in a democracy to stand just as it is to vote. And I can tell you that all over the country today, our candidates have been inundated with thousands of phone calls and emails telling them to withdraw their candidacy. They're told that the Conservative should be given a free run. They're told they could be splitting the Brexit vote. Well, the arguments themselves are actually nonsensical, because there are parts of the country, of course, in which we are the challengers to the Labour Party, and it's the Conservative standing that is splitting the Leave vote. Add to that, in Labour seats, we pick up votes from Labour voters who would never ever vote Conservative, and in some cases, that may even help the Conservative candidates, as indeed it did back in 2015 when I was leader of UKIP. We actually on that election, helped David Cameron get a majority. But on a wholesale, industrial manner, people are being phoned and emailed and contacted and asked to stand down. Some of the phone calls are civil. Some of the phone calls are deeply threatening and even intimidatory. People are being told the next month of their lives and going on will be misery if they decide to stand in these elections. That is not a free and fair functioning democracy where people can put themselves up and stand. But that's the kind of the bad cop side of what's happened today. The good cop side is even more amazing. At local level, candidates being contacted by local Conservative associations and told if they stand down, they'll get safe seats in district councils, county councils, or unitary authorities. But higher up the chain, it is even more astonishing and even more dreadful. Take Anne Widdecombe, for argument's sake. Standing in Plymouth, she's had 2 phone calls from 10 Downing Street. 2 phone calls telling her she must stand down, and if she does, she can become part of the negotiating team. Her response, of course, typical Anne, she's a very principled and strong lady. Typical of Anne, she has said, well, actually, we asked for a place on the negotiating team if we won the European elections. Why didn't you do it then? Others, I know one candidate telephoned by Sir Edward Lister, one of the grand men of our nation, ringing one of our candidates, offering him, if he stood down, a serious job in a government department. And the even more sinister side of this is that actually Number 10 and people very close to Boris Johnson, and by the way, I just don't believe Boris actually knows any of this. I think he's kept in the dark. But people very close to Boris Johnson, Number 10, actually meeting with small groups of Brexit Party MEPs and saying to them, look, you can be on the negotiating team, you can be members of the House of Lords, all you've got to do is get Nigel to stand down virtually all of our candidates. It is absolutely against the law. It is corrupt. It is the behaviour we would expect in a corrupt South American dictatorship. It is Venezuela. Welcome to Venezuela. You thought you were living in a 21st century democracy. I'm afraid you're not. Why am I talking about this? Well, in all the years I have been doing this, and goodness me, I've seen the establishment again and again defend themselves against everybody else. I have never seen behaviour as appalling as I have in the last 72 hours, and in particular today. 1 or 2 of our candidates have been frightened off the park, but actually, as I speak to you tonight, I said we'd field 300 candidates. I think amazingly, that still 285 are standing, and thank goodness for that. And well done you, men and women out there. You've resisted the bribes, you've resisted the temptation, you have withstood the intimidation, and you are good, brave people. I tell you what, when I launched the Brexit Party, the slogan was change politics for good, and my God, this needs to be changed. It is absolutely corrupt to the core. The way that peerages, the way that Christmas baubles are being used to bribe people off is, I think, a complete, total and utter disgrace. We'll find out tomorrow morning what the final scores on the doors are. I am more convinced now than I've ever been that if the Conservative Party are left to their own devices, and by the way, I think it becomes ever more likely that the Conservatives will win a majority because Labour are bombing. I think Labour abstentionism could be the key factor in this election. But it's ever more clear to me that if the Conservative Party are left to their own devices, they will fail to deliver a proper Brexit. Boris will backtrack on those big promises he made last week. So, the original strategy of allowing Boris a free run in those seats on a Canada-style plus trade deal, it only works, and it only ever did work, if we get Brexit Party MPs elected in some of our key constituencies. And that now has to be absolutely my major task over the course of the next 4 weeks. I'm going to be traversing the length and breadth of this country supporting our candidates to get some of our people over the line. It is much harder than it would have been had the Conservatives showed any sense of good grace and stood down and given us a bye in some of those constituencies. But all I got for my generous offer was abuse, intimidation, and indeed corruption. And let me just say something to you that is very important. And it's this. Several times in the last few months, I've been asked the question, what do you want, Nigel? And I'll tell you what my answer has been every single time. Nothing. I don't want anything from this establishment. I'm not for sale. It's as simple as that. The fact they have managed to attempt to bribe people in the Brexit Party, and that one or two in the Brexit Party have listened to the conversations, well, I guess when somebody important and powerful talks to you, you listen. But listen, the onus is not on us. The onus is on this regime in Downing Street. I don't trust them 1 inch with Brexit or with anything else unless we're there in the House of Commons, unless we get a beachhead in the House of Commons, just as we did with UKIP, when 3 of us got elected back in 1999 and were able to use that position to move on, build a national party, threaten David Cameron to the extent that he gave a referendum, and we've got to do the same thing here. Otherwise, our Brexit is going to be betrayed. So, I think quite a depressing day in many ways. I mean, I know I've been doing this forever. I know I should be very cynical, but even the extent of this has shocked me. Now, as ever, your questions. Twitter says, is it true what Jason Graves said? Jason Graves works for the Daily Mail. Jason Graves tweeted yesterday, Nigel Farage might vote for the Conservative Party. I was asked, would I vote Conservative? I said, I'll wait to see the manifesto, because I want to see in the manifesto. I want to see, is a Canada Plus trade deal in the manifesto? If not, then, you know, I've been crossed by Boris. I wouldn't be the first, mind you, but I'm waiting to see that. Look, let me be clear about this. I, myself, simply cannot vote for the Conservatives, even if they have a good manifesto, after their appalling behaviour over the course of the last few weeks. On Facebook, Reginald says, I see Corbyn had a bad day yesterday. No, Reginald. Corbyn's having a bad day every day. You remember, back in 2017, Jeremy Corbyn, after the election campaign, there he was on a stage at Glastonbury. He was a hero to the youth. He promised he'd get rid of all student debt. After the election, he found out it would cost $100 billion and decided to drop the policy. I just don't think that Corbyn is firing in this campaign in any way at all. In fact, I think he's bombing. Everywhere I've been, I just don't find any enthusiasm for Corbyn at all. The Labour vote is softer than it's ever been. So forget the day-to-day. Look at the trend. They are in trouble. Paul says on Facebook, I drink in your local. I'll buy you a pint when it's all over. Will it ever be over? I wonder, will it ever be over? And this is the problem originally with Boris's deal. He says, let's get Brexit done, but this deal does not get Brexit done. It leads us into years of negotiations, which is why I was pleased he said we would definitely leave next year, but it's going to need him to keep to his word. Without that, I'm afraid we're going to get let down. And my last question is, Alison on Facebook says, will you marry me? Oh, Alison, thank you. You've cheered me up. It's been really a very depressing day, and I thank you for that. So we're back off on the road tomorrow. I'll be in the West Midlands tomorrow. I'm going to be on the road nearly every day between now and the general election. It is a very difficult thing in life to take on the establishment in a country and to try and get change, whether that's in politics or in science or in business or in sport. If you take on the establishment, they make it hard for you. They always do. It's how humans operate. And I don't mind a tough, fair contest. What I've seen today is our democratic system actually being introduced. What I've seen today is political corruption on a scale in this country that I would never have believed. And it makes me more determined. We've got to fight. We've got to win this. We've got to get Brexit. Massive reform of our political institutions. We've got to change politics for good. Thank you.